It had been 10 months since my fiancée got pregnant with the child of her first love. The woman finally sensed that something was wrong. He asked his sister, "Lately, I've been busy keeping her company while she rests and takes care of the baby. Didn't father cause any trouble?" His sister looked completely confused. Feuding already announced to the public that the engagement was off. She even packed up your things and sent them back. You really didn't know? The woman suddenly froze. Her face turned deathly pale. She didn't know. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I overheard her conversation with her sister. "Liu Cixi, are you out of your mind? You actually hid it from Feuding and gave his bone marrow to Zhang Yiter." Liu Qingqing rushed into the hospital room, pointed at Liu Cixi, who was sitting on the sofa, and started yelling. Liu Cixi raised her head slightly. Her beautiful, delicate face carried a helpless tone as she frowned. Only Feuding and Yida had matching bone marrow. I had no other choice. Liu Qingqing grabbed the infection report with Feuding's name on it from the table. She glanced at the hospital summary that covered most of the year. Her rage was explosive. No way to name it. You knew perfectly well that Ating's health wasn't good, and yet you told him it was just a stomach issue and had him hospitalized. You let him take that risk. I find this completely unbelievable. Did Zhang Yiter cast some spell on you? Back then, just to make him smile, you raced cars and ended up paralyzed for 5 years. During those 5 years, Feuding stayed by your side. Now that you're healthy again, Zhang Yida fell ill and was tricked into returning to the country. You secretly gave Feuding's bone marrow to Zhang Yiter. More than half a year has passed. Zhang Yida just recovered from his illness, and now you're messing around with him doing IVF. At the doorway of the hospital room, I had just finished the discharge paperwork and heard Liu Qingqing's furious voice. The hand I had on the wall clenched tighter. The smile on my face froze. It felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. Just half an hour ago, the doctor had told me that my post-op infection was completely healed, and I could be discharged. Right there and then, Liu Cixi proposed to me. I cried with joy. I even posted on social media, saying today was the happiest day of my life. In the hospital room, Cixi had her head lowered, her dark, fine hair covering her ink-black eyes. I couldn't see her expression. "Sis, please help me keep all this quiet. Don't let Feuding find out." Yida's grandmother doesn't have much time left. Her only wish is to hold his child before she dies. I don't want her to have any regrets. Liu Qingqing stared with wide eyes, her pretty, refined face filled with fury. Then show up in court. Who in her circle doesn't know? He's been in love with you for 8 full years. I remember it perfectly. 8 years ago, Zhang Yida confessed to the second Li family daughter and got rejected. You wanted to avenge him out of spite, so you deliberately got close to Feuding and flirted with him. You made the Li family girl who liked Feuding lose her standing. Now you're carrying Zhang Yida's child. Feuding has been with you for 8 years. What do you expect him to do now? Liu Cixi lowered her eyes and looked away. Her voice was hoarse as she said, "I've arranged everything. Even if father never forgives me for the rest of his life, once he knows I'm carrying Yida's child, it'll all be over anyway. I've gotten used to Yida's presence over these 8 years. I'm going to marry him." I didn't listen to anything else after that. A nurse happened to walk toward the hospital room. I lowered my head, pretending I'd just returned. The 2 women in the room looked at each other in shock. Liu Qingqing pulled Liu Cixi away. On the way home, Liu Cixi discussed wedding details with me, but I didn't hear a single word. I stared at the buildings outside the window as they flew past, feeling nothing but a cold chill through my body. I first met Liu Cixi when I was 15, at a gathering with my parents and their business partners. She had the elegance and aloofness of a noble girl, and that image was forever etched into my mind. A glimpse of her beauty left me breathless. I raced under the name Wu Ying, and ended up saving Liu Cixi's life. That was the beginning of my long, secret crush. When I was 20, Li Juwei began to pursue me. That same year, Liu Cixi attended a party thrown by one of my friends. That night, she took the initiative to add me on WeChat. I was in a good mood for the entire evening. Later that same year, I found out Liu Cixi had a first love named Zhang Yide. But Zhang Yide cherished freedom above all else. He had dated more than a dozen girlfriends, yet never once did he like Liu Cixi. When I turned 21, Liu Cixi confessed her feelings to me. I agreed to be with her. At 22, Liu Cixi got into a car racing accident and was rushed to the hospital. The next day, it was announced that she would be permanently disabled. That year, the disabled Liu Cixi seemed like a completely different person. Her temper grew gloomy and volatile, out of love for her. I turned down my parents' offer to move abroad with them and chose to stay behind and take care of her. At 27, Liu Cixi gradually recovered. Old Master Liu publicly announced that she would take over the Liu family. The young girl once again became the breeze of spring in my memory. When I was a child, I once fainted at home for no apparent reason. When I woke up, the doctor told me I had a stomach illness and that I needed to be hospitalized for surgery. Thinking back on it now, what I once believed to be a love gifted from heaven had been full of lies from the very beginning. More than half a year ago, I had blood drawn many times at the hospital. Liu Cixi told me it was for testing, but in truth, she had tricked me into donating bone marrow to Zhang Yide. The Bentley slowly drove into the Villa district. It was midnight. Liu Cixi's phone suddenly rang. I glanced at the caller ID. It read Dazi the cutie. Liu Cixi swiftly hung up. Her slender fingers gently brushed the screen. Moments later, she got up and left in a hurry. I walked over to the window. In the endless darkness outside, the Bentley gradually disappeared from view. I dialed my mother's number and said, "Mom, I've made up my mind. I agreed to the marriage with the Su family's Lin Yin. 7 days from now, as soon as I land, I'll meet with him." My mother probably guessed what I had gone through. She offered me a few words of comfort, then patiently helped me analyze the situation. Think carefully, Ating. The Fu family is no longer what it used to be. This marriage alliance is not something to be taken lightly. Though the Su family and the Liu family are worlds apart, they have been enemies for generations, like fire and water. If you marry into the Su family, they may demand that you cut all ties with the Lias, completely and permanently. On the other end of the line, my hand holding the phone slightly trembled. 6 years ago, the Fu family expanded and moved its business abroad, and we settled overseas permanently. But not long after the move, the Fu family encountered a financial crisis. The Su family, also overseas, made several overtures, expressing interest in a marriage alliance with the Fus. But my parents knew I liked Liu Cixi and never once considered sacrificing my marriage for the company. But now, I don't want to have any more contact with Liu Cixi, and marrying into the Su family is the best option. Mom, I've made up my mind. For the rest of my life, I never want to see Liu Cixi again. On the other end of the call, my mother paused in silence for a few seconds. All right then, tomorrow your father and I will visit the Su family to discuss the marriage. I couldn't sleep the entire night. Early the next morning, Liu Cixi still hadn't returned. She only sent one message, feuding. "There's an issue at the company. I'll be on a business trip for 3 days." I didn't reply to her. Instead, I booked a flight to go abroad in 7 days and began packing my things. I had been living with Liu Cixi these past few years, so I had a lot of belongings. With the Fu family's situation worsening, I listed everything of value for sale online. By evening, a message popped up from a stranger on a social app. It read, "Han feuding." I opened the profile and saw a newly issued pregnancy report. The username was Dazi in Bliss. It was a private account newly created by Zhang Yide. Since Liu Cixi's pregnancy had to be kept secret, he didn't dare make it public, and I was the only friend he added. A minute later, Zhang Yide shared his latest TikTok video with me. It was a photo of him accompanying Liu Cixi during a prenatal checkup, and added a caption, "Gentle and considerate. The third ultra-wealthy expectant mother." I saw right through his little scheme. After liking the post, I left a comment. "So now that your bone marrow illness is cured, you're back to provoke me again. Zhang Yiter, did those steamed buns taste good with your anemia?" The next day, I went to say goodbye to my closest friends one by one. On the way, I delivered my luxury items to the buyers who had already shown interest. On my way home, I received Zhang Yiter's second TikTok post. Still just a few pictures. This time, it was of him helping Liu Cixi pick out maternity clothes, pinks and whites. Every single outfit looked stunning. I replied under his last video. Zhang Yiter responded to my comment with a tone that was nothing short of arrogant. It wasn't like I begged you to donate to me. It was Sister Cixi who got worried and forced me to accept it. I sneered and replied with a single comma. On the third day, I sold all the gifts I had given Liu Cixi over the years. Those dozen shirts, shoes and watches were all gone. In the afternoon, Liu Cixi returned. She noticed the bedroom looked a little emptier, and there was a mysterious black suitcase that hadn't been there before. With her thick brows furrowed, she asked, "Why does the house feel so empty? The shirts you gave me are missing. Everything was perfectly fine. Why did you suddenly buy a suitcase?" I lowered my eyes slightly and casually made up an excuse. Those shirts were outdated, so I threw them out. Then again, maybe it was already too late. Liu Cixi probably thought I was mad at her for being gone the past 3 days. She pulled out a document she'd long prepared. A limited edition Lamborghini supercar purchase contract. "Work's been hectic these days, so I bought you a supercar. I'll go with you to pick it up soon." I glanced at the purchase contract in her hand. Unlike other men, I didn't care much for watches. Only sports cars ever captured my heart. This particular Lamborghini was one I'd recently had my eye on. Liu Cixi had it custom painted in black and pink, my favorite color combination. Even the seats were tailored with my favorite cartoon character Doraemon. Over these 8 years, Liu Cixi had memorized all of my preferences down to the smallest detail. If I hadn't overheard her conversation with Liu chinking outside the hospital room, I probably would have been deeply touched by now. But that moment had shattered everything. I quietly set the car contract aside. Liu Cixi, slightly sulking, leaned close. She pinched my pale cheek. "Still mad, huh? There's a party tonight. Come with me and clear your head a bit." I was just about to refuse, but Liu Cixi had already taken my hand and led me downstairs. The Bentley hadn't gone far when Liu Cixi's phone rang again. It was that same cute nickname, Yi Dazi. I couldn't hear the whole conversation clearly, but I caught one urgent line. "Cixi, help me." Liu Cixi's face tightened immediately. She tapped her screen and somehow pulled up Zhang Yiter's real-time location, then quickly spun the car around. "Forget the party for now. Zhang Yiter has been kidnapped. We have to go save him." Liu Cixi drove like a maniac, running over a dozen red lights without hesitation. 20 minutes later, Liu Cixi locked eyes on a black sedan ahead where Zhang Yiter was being held. She narrowed her eyes and slammed the gas pedal. With a loud crash, the back of the black car crumpled in an instant. At that same moment, the Bentley's passenger side was rammed hard by one of the kidnappers, a partner of Zhang Yiter's captors. I couldn't dodge it in time, and my head was immediately split open from the impact. Bright red blood trickled from my scalp down my pale cheek. My skull throbbed with a heaviness I couldn't fight off. It felt like 1,000 needles stabbed into my brain. The pain left me speechless for a long time, even after such a brutal collision in the passenger seat. Liu Cixi didn't spare me a single glance. Her eyes were locked solely on Zhang Yiter in the black sedan. After crashing into them 3 more times, the black car was finally forced to a stop. The people inside quickly escaped into an accomplice's car. Liu Cixi flung open the car door and carried Zhang Yide out from the back seat. For the first time, her sharp eyes revealed a flicker of panic. She asked if I was scared out of my mind. She asked if I was hurt anywhere. Zhang Yide lay in Liu Cixi's arms. He turned his head slightly, revealing a blushing face. He cried like a weeping pear blossom, delicate and full of sorrow. He said it was father's enemy in business. They only slapped me once, nothing serious. He tried to downplay it as no big deal. His pitiful state made Liu Cixi's heart twist in pain. She scolded him, saying how could that possibly be called no big deal? All these years, even while you were overseas, I've still spoiled and pampered you like before. You've never experienced anything like this. She blamed herself for arriving too late. He whimpered that he was so afraid. She gently said not to be afraid, admitting it was her fault. She insisted on taking him for a full-body checkup right away. Liu Cixi supported Zhang Yide and helped him into the back seat of the Bentley. She reached the hospital in just 5 minutes. After getting out, she carried Zhang Yide straight to the emergency room. The entire time, she never once noticed me in the passenger seat with bloodshot eyes. Blood was still trickling steadily from my head. I watched the two of them disappear from sight. I tilted my head back, refusing to let the tears fall. Fighting through the pain, I pushed the car door open and staggered toward the hospital entrance. In the evening, heavy rain began to pour. I didn't bother to shield myself with my hand, letting the rain soak my wounds without resistance. A nurse at the triage desk screamed in shock when she saw me. She immediately began treating my injuries, then led me to get examined. An hour later, my weakened body finally finished all the tests. And for the first time, I picked up my phone. The screen showed over a dozen missed calls. All of them were from Liu Cixi. I didn't hesitate for even a second. I powered off my phone without another thought, knowing I'd be hooked up to Ives late into the night. I simply asked the nurse to arrange a room for me, somewhere between waking and dreaming. My thoughts wandered back to the past. Ever since Liu Cixi became disabled, I had attended all her business dinners and events on her behalf. I took her place at countless social engagements. There was once a banquet where two CEOs started arguing. They flipped the entire table in a fit of rage. Every dish shattered on the floor in an instant. A shard of porcelain bounced up and sliced into my wrist. The moment Liu Cixi found out, she rushed to the scene and immediately had her assistant cut all business ties with both companies. Without any hesitation, she frantically took me to the hospital to have my wounds cleaned. Back then, I thought she was making a fuss over nothing. But she comforted me with a gentle smile and said, "You're the most important man in my life. I don't want to see a single wound on you. A man should be flawless from head to toe. Only then do clothes and jewelry look their best on you." But now, with blood all over my face, she ignored me completely, all for another man. She once swore I'd never have a scar on my body. Yet she had no problem letting me risk my life to donate bone marrow for someone else. Even marriage and children. She kept those secrets hidden, having them with someone else in silence. Before falling asleep, I saw a new TikTok from Udazi. He looked so blissful as he shared the latest post. It showed Liu Cixi kneeling beside him to wash his feet, coaxing him to sleep. She even knelt on one knee just to please him. I watched the video over and over again, and each time, the unease in my chest grew stronger. I couldn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, still feeling unwelcome at home, I had just stepped into the villa when Uncle Chen, the butler, greeted me with a grave expression. He said Mr. Zhang is waiting for you in the parlor, and he's not in the best of moods. I walked toward the parlor. From a distance, I could see Liu Cixi comforting Zhang Yide. He was sniffling softly as he smoked. His tears made him look all the more pitiful. When Liu Cixi saw I had finally returned, she could no longer suppress the fury on her face. A cold air seemed to radiate from her entire being. She accused me of deliberately leaking Zhang Yide's location to his father's enemies. I froze in my tracks. I looked toward Zhang Yide sitting on the sofa. He tilted his head smugly and leaned against Liu Cixi, wearing a triumphant smile fit for early spring. In that instant, everything became clear to me. I rubbed the space between my brows in frustration. I don't even know who his father's enemies are. So how could I have leaked his whereabouts to them? Liu Cici's face darkened. She pulled out a stack of photos and threw them in front of me. Then how do you explain these pictures of you meeting with Zhang's enemies? Tell me how you explain this. I glanced at the photos on the table out of the corner of my eye. My expression grew faintly cold. They were taken a few days ago when I was selling second-hand luxury goods. Photos of me meeting the beer at a cafe. No wonder that man was so agreeable. He didn't even try to haggle with me, only requested to meet at the cafe in person. Seeing I didn't speak, Liu Cici assumed I was admitting guilt. Her delicate face darkened with terrifying intensity. She asked if I remembered what she once told me. No matter what the world says outside, all those rumors about her and Yeater. She swore nothing had ever happened between them, not even the slightest connection. She insisted he was truly a kind person, and that in the 8 years she had been with me, she had treated me well, hadn't she? She said I should know that better than anyone. She reminded me that just days ago, she had even proposed to me, yet I still chose to hurt him and make things difficult for him. And she asked if that was fair. As I listened to her words, it felt like needles were stabbing through my heart. In the 8 years I had been with Liu Cici, there was a full year where she pretended to pursue me just to help Zhang Yeater. 5 of those years, she was disabled, and I had taken care of her. In those 5 years of her disability, she was gloomy. She broke down and cried bitterly through the night. All of it was because she risked her life in illegal racing to fulfill Zhang Yeater's vanity. And because of that recklessness, all the pain she suffered born from Zhang Yeater, she had now completely forgotten. During those 5 years, I secretly enrolled her in physical therapy classes to help her recover faster. Every day, I massaged her legs. I never missed a single session. When she was depressed, I'd stay up late seeking advice from the best rehabilitation experts, just to learn how to comfort someone with a disability. All that I gave, she hadn't remembered any of it. It was truly ironic. I really wanted to ask her if Zhang Yeater was only a younger brother to her. Then why was she doing everything a lover would do for him? Yes, over the past 8 years, she had treated me in one way, and him in quite another. But I didn't want to argue with her anymore. I pointed to the bandage on my head and let out a bitter laugh. He was kidnapped yesterday, and I suffered a head injury too. It took 5 stitches. Would I be stupid enough to hurt him if it meant ending up this wounded myself? Even after pointing out I was injured too, Liu Cici remained unmoved. Her heart was fully consumed with concern for Zhang Yeater, and she still refused to trust me. Looking at the tight line of her jaw, I felt deeply relieved that I would be leaving in 3 days. Since she was so convinced I had done it, I asked her to tell me how she wanted to resolve this. She claimed that she didn't trust me. It's just that she had known Yeater for 16 years and 7 months, and he had never lied to her. Liu Cici paused, her expression twisting with anger, then said she would settle the matter right now. But first, since I made Yeater cry, it was my responsibility to comfort him. Just then, Zhang Yeater, who had been sulking the whole time, suddenly tossed the ring in his hand into the pool. He cried out in alarm. Cici, the ring you gave me just fell into the pool. He looked at me as he spoke. His thin lips curled into a smug smile, as if daring me. He said, fine, let's settle it like this. Don't bother comforting me anymore. Just pick up that ring, and I'll forgive you for everything you've done to hurt me. Winter had just begun, and the pool water was icy cold. The wound on my head hadn't even healed yet. I looked down at Liu Cici, who sat there in silence, her beautiful face lowered, so I couldn't see her eyes. Her slender fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest. Her cold head never once lifted. She didn't spare me a single glance. In that moment, I felt as if something had gripped my heart in a vice. It hurt so much I wanted to cry out. Then suddenly a memory struck me. 6 months after Liu Cici was diagnosed with her disability, Her grandfather came to visit her at the hospital. When he learned that her chances of recovery were slim, he began searching for another heir. That very night, Liu Cixi disappeared from her hospital room. When I finally found her, she was pushing her wheelchair. He walked into the raging sea with no hesitation, letting the icy seawater rise all the way to his chest. Terrified, I rushed to stop him, but he shoved me away without mercy. Don't pretend to care about me anymore. You're just my boyfriend, not my husband. If you really want to prove you care, then look at the wind and the waves now. Swim a full lap, and I'll do whatever you say from now on. I stared at him in stunned silence. I honestly wanted to tell him. I wasn't pretending at all. I truly wanted to be his husband. So even though I couldn't swim, I didn't hesitate for a second. I turned and plunged into the sea. The waves were rough and the wind howled. I was quickly dragged under by the current, and I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw was a pair of worried dark eyes. She looked pale, her jaw clenched tight with tension. Why didn't you tell me you couldn't swim? Are you insane? How could you jump into the ocean without knowing how to swim? I looked up at her, my voice hoarse and raspy. Liu Cixi, even if your legs never recover, I still want to marry you. I truly love you more than you can imagine. Since that day, Liu Cixi never brought me to the sea again. Even the pool at home was kept dry. I used to think she just didn't want water in the pool, that her gentle nature had finally compromised, and ordered the maids to clean and refill it daily, so I thought. I gave a faint tug at the corner of my lips. My expression stayed calm. You want me to retrieve the ring, don't you? Fine, I'll get it. Without even taking off my jacket, I turned and jumped into the pool. The freezing water soaked into my skin, sending violent shivers through my body. I began to sink slowly, overwhelmed by an all-consuming fear. Yet I clenched my teeth and refused to call for help. Soon after, a cloud of red bloomed in the water. The butler nearby cried out in panic, "My God, sir, your head is bleeding." Liu Cixi tore off her coat and dove into the pool to pull me out. She screamed at me enough. Why must you be so cruel? Couldn't you have just walked away earlier? I lifted my head and stared at the diamond ring at the bottom of the pool, and with a coldness in my voice, I said, "Didn't you want me to make her smile? Well, look at me now." Li Baiyu must be very pleased with this outcome. Liu Cixi furrowed her brows in frustration. Her once beautiful and refined face, now clouded in stormy anger. How many times have I told you? I really only see Yida as a younger brother. The Zhang family's business in the forestry trade isn't bad either. If word got out about what you're doing, what then? Public opinion is brutal these days. I told you to comfort him, so he wouldn't spiral into despair. Everything I've done is for your sake. Liu Cixi said it with such deep affection, as if it had all been out of love for me. But as I listened, all I could do was laugh bitterly through the pain. She talked about public opinion. But back then, when the heir of the Liu family was crippled from street racing because of Zhang Yidu, didn't they just cover it all up anyway? Zhang Yidu did whatever he wanted. He bullied the weak at school and acted like a tyrant, but he always lived smoothly under the shade of their family tree, even their surrogacy through IVF. He managed to keep that hidden from the public. But now, even if I really were behind the kidnapping, she had the nerve to lecture me about public opinion. The truth was obvious. In Liu Cixi's heart, I would never compare to Zhang Yidu. I didn't want to speak to Liu Cixi anymore. I peeled off my soaked black coat and walked alone toward the living room. With each step I took, the blood loss from my head made me dizzy. And suddenly, I collapsed. Liu Cixi's expression changed dramatically. She rushed toward me in a panic. Just as she was about to catch me in her arms, Zhang Yidu suddenly crouched on the ground, weeping like a child in the rain. "Cixi, my stomach hurts so bad. Help me upstairs to lie down." Liu Cixi froze in her steps. She had just reached out to lift me. but turned and scooped up Zhang Yida instead, letting my head slam heavily into the floor. She looked at the butler nearby and left behind only one cold sentence. Uncle Chen, take Mr. Song to the hospital. When I woke up again, the first thing I saw was a pair of worried dark eyes looking at me. Liu Cixi called out my name to wake me up, then hurried off to get the doctor. Only after confirming I was alright did she finally breathe a sigh of relief. Sharp-eyed, I noticed there was now a Buddhist prayer bead bracelet on my left wrist. It looked just like the one Liu Cixi always wore. Her assistant smiled and said, "Sir, you hadn't woken up for so long. President Liu was so worried she gave you the beads she's worn for over 10 years. She passed them on to you. Last night, she even swore before the Buddha that if you came back safe, she would become vegetarian for life and give up smoking, drinking, and partying." I frowned and removed the beads from my wrist in mild distaste, then handed them back to Liu Cixi. "You don't have to change your habits for me." Liu Cixi didn't take them. Instead, she put the beads back on my wrist, her voice warm and gentle. "Back when I was disabled, didn't you make similar vows for me?" My heart trembled just a little at her words. It was in the second year of Liu Cixi's injury. I'd heard Lingquan Temple was especially blessed in the early mornings, so I took her there overnight to make a wish. That day before the Buddha, I vowed to give up everything I had in exchange for Liu Cixi's health, and she too made a vow before the Buddha that she would marry me and be my bride 5 years later. I remember staring at the handwritten wish she'd tied to the prayer tree, eyes red as she held me and tried to comfort me for a long time. It was one of those rare moments when her eyes held only me. But in truth, it was only when Zhang Yida was not around that Liu Cixi's eyes had space for me. Now that Zhang Yida was back in the country, Liu Cixi's gaze would never settle on me again. I looked at her beautiful face, quietly asking for praise. Her soft features lowered ever so slightly, as if she were struggling inside. When I woke up again, it was already the afternoon. I got up intending to ask the doctor when I could be discharged. But before I could open the door, I overheard Liu Cixi and Liu Qingqing talking in the hallway, their voices drifting in clearly. "When are you planning to set the wedding date with feuding?" Liu Qingqing's voice sounded puzzled. Liu Cixi hesitated for a second, then replied calmly, "I already mentioned it to him last time. I plan to hold the wedding at the end of the month." Liu Qingqing nodded and reminded her the wedding must be grand. The dowry can only be generous, never lacking. Feuding already donated bone marrow to your childhood sweetheart. We absolutely cannot skimp on his dowry. Then, as if remembering something, Liu Qingqing's tone shifted. "What a coincidence. Now that I think about it, you're getting married this month. And I heard someone from the Su family is also getting married soon. The groom is also named Feuding." Hearing this, I rushed to push open the door, cleared my throat twice, and the two women immediately stopped talking. That night, the doctor announced I could be discharged. After returning home, I received a friend request. The name displayed was just 3 characters: Su Wanru. I blinked in surprise, thinking it might be the woman I was supposed to marry. So I accepted the request. The moment I did, she sent me a dowry list. It was a booklet, covered in dense writing, listing every item in the dowry. I skimmed through it roughly, and felt like I couldn't even count them all. Then Suwanru sent more messages. "This is the dowry list. Let me know if you're satisfied with it." Fui told me, "You're flying out the day after tomorrow and arriving at the airport the morning after that. He and I will come pick you up." I paused for a few seconds before replying, "The dowry is enough. Thank you." She didn't reply again. That entire night, Liu Cixi kept trying to make small talk with me, but my heart felt more and more distant. Liu Cixi probably thought I was still upset about what had happened earlier. To cheer me up, she had her assistant plan a bachelor party for me the next day. By the next morning, everyone in our circle knew it was Liu Cixi's pre-wedding bachelor night. That night, quite a crowd showed up. And the moment I arrived at the venue, Liu Cixi wrapped her arms around my waist. He pulled out 2 car purchase contracts. He handed one of them to me first. His gaze was deep and unreadable. That supercar from last time. I always felt I didn't deserve you these past 2 days. So I ordered you a new supercar. He paused for a moment, then took the original Lamborghini purchase contract and handed it to the well-dressed, pathetically pitiful Zhang Yide standing beside him. He gently said, "Yide, this car was originally meant for your brother. But now that he has a new one, we'll just give this one to you. Though it might feel a bit unfair to you." Zhang Yide took the contract with uncontrollable joy. The smile on his lips was barely concealed. "It's all right. Today is all about my brother." Though he said that, anyone with eyes could see clearly that the Lamborghini given to Zhang Yide by Liu Cixi was not just any supercar. It was a nationwide limited edition, while the one newly bought for me this time was just an ordinary, slightly more expensive sports car. Guests nearby couldn't help whispering, "Is the groom Cixi is marrying really feuding? This is clearly feuding's pre-wedding bachelor party. Why is Zhang Yide getting gifts?" They always come up with excuses. Isn't it just a give that nationwide limited edition supercar to Zhang Yide? Who doesn't know that father treasures his cars like his life? Zhang Yide pulling this stunt is downright disgusting. I heard Zhang Yide is an amazing racer. According to inside sources, he's actually the famous racer Wu Ying. Cixi liked him from the start because Wu Ying saved her life on the racetrack. I sat quietly in the corner, listening silently to all the gossip. Wasn't that Wu Ying actually me? I hadn't even had time to appreciate the moment when many around had finished analyzing the situation and walked up to Zhang Yide with their wine glasses. One wave of flattery after another. "Yide, you're so lucky. Cixi treats you so well. Just gifting you such an expensive supercar, it's nothing. This white shirt you're wearing looks amazing. Makes you look like a real prince. I heard you're incredible at racing. You're such a sweet and charming guy. A perfect match for Cixi." More and more people gathered to praise Zhang Yide. Everyone had completely forgotten that today was supposed to be about me. Until about an hour later, when the mood began to liven up. People started singing, and others played games. Zhang Yide stayed seated right beside Liu Cixi. His gaze never strayed from her. When Liu Cixi craved crab, Zhang Yide patiently lowered his voice deliberately and said gently, "You're pregnant, you can't eat that. Wait until you've had the baby. I'll buy you more then." Zhang Yide was clearly trying to play the devoted lover. Liu Cixi let out a soft sigh, then pulled out a black unlimited credit card from her wallet. She handed him that black card, which instantly caused quite a stir. Could it be? People always say the present can't beat the first love. Turns out it's all true. Amid the noise and laughter, I quietly sat in the corner, looking down and playing with my phone, as if none of the festivities around me had anything to do with me. Zhang Yide glanced around the room, and his eyes landed on me, still sitting in the corner. He walked over with a smug look, looking absolutely full of himself. "Today is your and Cixi's pre-wedding bachelor party, but I stole the spotlight. Everyone's fawning over me, flattering me. You must be feeling pretty upset, huh? But no matter how upset you are, you'll just have to grit your teeth and bear it. Because even if you were the one who stood by Cixi during her hardest 5 years, so what? As long as I appear before her, the one she loves the most will always be me." I knew Zhang Yide was trying to provoke me, but my tears had already run dry the day I was discharged from the hospital. Zhang Yide saw I didn't respond, and his eyes turned cold and distant. His gaze fell on the jade bracelet around my wrist, staring intently at the delicate piece. A flicker of jealousy passed through his eyes. Suddenly, he snatched it from my hand. "Are you insane? What do you think you're doing?" I raised my hand to take it back, but Zhang Yide quietly used force, gripping the jade bracelet in his hand. Another flash of envy shone in his eyes. I heard. This was a gift from Madame Liu to you as her future son-in-law. I looked at him with clear eyes. Just as I was about to speak, Zhang Yide suddenly stuffed the bracelet into his mouth, forcefully pulling at the corners of his mouth, tearing a bloody gash. Bright red blood dripped down from his lips. He collapsed weakly to the floor. The jade bracelet tumbled to the ground. He looked up, crying, "Brother, I just thought the bracelet Liu Yi gave you was pretty. Why did you suddenly shove it in my mouth? It hurts so much." Before I could react, a shadow in black appeared and shoved me violently aside. I couldn't keep my balance and fell hard to the floor, crashing right into the table holding the enormous celebration cake. The wound on my head split open again, and blood seeped out. The cake slipped off and landed on me, sticky and cloying. The pain brought tears to the corners of my eyes. I looked up at Liu Cixi rushing toward us, but she didn't spare me a single glance. She picked up a handkerchief with concern and gently wiped the blood from Zhang Yide's lips. Her eyes shimmered with tender worrying. I finally understood the role Zhang Yide was playing. I wiped the sticky cream from my face, picked the jade bracelet up from the floor, and held it out to Zhang Yide. Just when Liu Cixi thought I was trying to start something with Zhang Yide and was about to explode, I grabbed Zhang Yide's wrist and put the jade bracelet on his hand. "And Liu gave this to me, but you seem to really like it, so now it's yours." Zhang Yide looked up in shock, forgetting to act pitiful. Liu Cixi frowned. She couldn't understand what I was trying to do. "That's a birthday gift from my mother to you. Only the Liu family's son-in-law can wear it." I stood up and said coldly, "He's already touched it. It's dirty, I don't want it anymore." With that, I turned around, not caring about the expressions on their faces. I limped out of the room. Behind me, Liu Cixi stared at my cold, retreating figure. Her beautiful face looked slightly chilled in the late night air. Liu Cixi finally came back. She got ready and slipped under the covers. Looking at my back turned toward her, she sighed softly. "Don't be angry, and stop always picking on Yide. He really respects and likes you as his older brother. Yide said he wants to get along with you, so he'll be staying with us for the next few days. Please don't bully him again." I closed my eyes and didn't respond. My tone was calm and indifferent. "Just if Zhang Yide isn't Wu Ying, would you still treat him this well?" Liu Cixi gently stroked my head. Her voice was hoarse. "He's my younger brother. I treat him well because he's Zhang Yide. It has nothing to do with whether he's Wu Ying or not." I knocked lightly on my chest and answered faintly, "Anyway, there's only one day left. I just need to stay here one more day." The next morning, I had just woken up when I heard sweet laughter coming from upstairs. I got up and walked out. From afar, I saw the second-floor lobby. Liu Cixi was teaching Zhang Yide how to arrange flowers. The two stood very close. Liu Cixi was gently explaining to Zhang Yide how to trim different types of flowers. Watching the warmth between them, I felt a little dazed. Back when Liu Cixi was injured, I worried she'd be bored. So I started inviting her to arrange flowers. She had a great temperament for it. I only needed to teach her once and she learned it perfectly. Later, she even had her assistant prepare the flowers. And the first thing she did every morning was place a fresh bouquet by my bedside. But ever since Zhang Yide came back to the country, she seemed to have stopped doing that altogether. My lash lowered slightly. I hid the loneliness in my eyes. I walked downstairs alone, planning to get some breakfast. But after just a few steps, a heavy vase came crashing down on me. With a loud thud, my skull split open instantly from the impact. Warm blood streamed down from my head. The pain was so sharp it sent me sprawling on the floor. In a daze, I saw Zhang Yide casually walking down from the second floor, smiling brightly. "Oh no, brother. I just wanted to show you the flower arrangement I made." But my hand slipped and it accidentally hit your head. What should I do? You're bleeding so much it looks terrifying. How about I call an ambulance for you? But I'm so scared I can't even pick up my phone. You won't blame me, right? Brother, just hold on a bit longer. Before I could hear the rest, the pain knocked me out cold. Later, a housekeeper found me, panicked at the sight, and rushed me to the hospital. When I woke up, it was already noon. My head had been stitched with 30 full stitches. Seeing the grotesque sight, the doctor said I was lucky that a concussion had caused temporary blindness in my right eye. Liu Cixi stood beside the hospital bed, leaning in to gently ask if I was in pain. He helped me sit up with concern and brought me water. His actions still showed care for me, but every word out of his mouth leaned toward defending Zhang Yide. Yide knows he was wrong. He feels really guilty about it. He almost fainted just now from shame. How embarrassing! When we brought you to the hospital, a gossip-hungry reporter snapped photos. Now everyone's waiting for you to explain. So when the media asks, just say, you tripped and hit your head by accident. That way the Zhang family will see your kindness. Zhang Yide is Wu Ying. He once saved my life. I turned away and pulled the blanket over my head. I didn't know if the pain was from my body or my heart. Curled beneath the blanket, my eyes turned red. I remembered how I used to be sick all the time. There was a period when I kept running a low fever. Liu Cixi hired 3 private doctors to watch over me around the clock. Whenever I had a stomachache, he would spend the whole day comforting me. He never let me leave the bed during that time. But the person before me now was no longer the same. Liu Cixi stood at the edge of my hospital bed while I sniffled softly. His heart seemed to ache as he moved to comfort me. But a nurse rushed in suddenly. Mr. Liu, the young man who came with you this morning, suddenly fainted from crying. Do you want to go check on him? The moment he heard Zhang Yide had passed out crying, Liu Cixi forgot all about me and turned toward the hallway. The hospital room quickly fell silent again, leaving only me. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A message came in from Yide's Happiness Moments post. So what if you had 30 stitches in your head? So what if you went blind in your right eye? I didn't even have to cry, and he still rushed over to support me right away. I disappeared for years, came back saying I wanted a child, and he agreed just like that. Tell me, how could he not love me? Not long after, Zhang Yide sent me a video. It showed Liu Cixi soothing a teary Zhang Yide. His eyes were red with worrying as he gently comforted him. Don't blame yourself. I told you I'd always protect you. Feuding just hit his head. It's nothing serious. He won't tell anyone you were the one who did it. Just focus on getting better now. Don't worry about these little things. After watching the video, my fingers dug hard into my palm. I forced myself to sit up and left the hospital alone. There were 6 hours left before I could leave for good. I went to Lingshuan Temple and cut down the wish ribbon I had tied with my own hands. The one Liu Cixi wrote when he was the groom. The cold temple wind bit at my skin. The ribbon blew into my hand. I picked it up and glanced at it. The first wish read, marry Feuding and make her my bride 5 years from now. The second wish said, as long as you come back. No matter when, I would always choose you. I looked at the wishing ribbon, let out a cold laugh and said congratulations. Liu Cixi, you got exactly what you wished for. Soon after, I returned to the villa. My phone kept vibrating without pause. It was another provoking message from Zhang Yide. I only glanced at it once, then sat down at my desk and slowly wrote a farewell letter. Along with it, I placed a photo of Wu Yin. After that, I picked up my suitcase and headed downstairs. I took the proposal from the hospital and placed the engagement ring inside a gray velvet box, then handed it to the butler. When Liu Cixi returns, please give this to him for me. And tell him as well. There's a letter for him on the desk upstairs. The butler had seen me removing the engagement ring. He must have sensed something and said in shock, "Sir, thank you, Uncle Chen, for taking care of me all these years. If fate allows, we'll meet again." I waved him off. Dragging my suitcase, I took a cab to the airport. An hour later, at the airport entrance, my brother Chenzi hugged me tightly, reluctant to let go. "Ting, if you're leaving, don't come back. Live well abroad. And never speak to that scumbag Liu Cixi again." My eyes turned red as I embraced Chenzi. I looked at the city in the early morning hours, lifted my chin slightly. "Goodbye, dawn. Farewell forever, Liu Cixi." The next day, all day long, Liu Cixi stayed in Zhang Yida's hospital room, coaxing him to do tests, convincing him to take medicine. Even though my ward was just one floor below, he never came to see me once. That evening, Zhang Yida threw a tantrum wanting to be discharged. Liu Cixi brought him back to the villa and patiently soothed him to sleep. When the butler saw him finally come downstairs, he handed over the gray velvet box. "Sir came home yesterday and asked me to give this to you." Liu Cixi took the box. His expression darkened. "He's discharged. Wasn't he supposed to stay in the hospital and recover? Why would he come home? Could it be he's acting up again? Didn't I already explain to him? There's nothing between me and Yeater. I've always seen him as a younger brother." When the gray velvet box was opened, the engagement ring lay there unmistakably. He froze for a moment. The butler quietly reminded from the side, "Sir also said there's a letter for you, left upstairs on the desk in the study." Liu Cixi tugged at his tie, a strange anxiety rising in his chest. He turned and went upstairs toward the study. Sure enough, there was a letter on the desk. When the words "farewell letter" met Liu Cixi's eyes, a terrible premonition hit him. He read it word for word, without missing a line. His mind exploded with a loud bang. An unprecedented panic surged in his heart. It's over! That day when Liu Qingqing spoke to him in the hospital, I had heard every word. The twisted lies were completely exposed. Panicked, Liu Cixi scrambled to call me. But out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a photo on the desk. In it, a young man wore a red racing suit, sitting casually inside a race car. He had taken off his mask and was making a smoking gesture with his right hand. So I was the one who saved him on the racetrack, and he had always wanted to repay me. There was no other reason. With trembling hands, Liu Cixi dialed my number, but only a cold voice came through the receiver. "The number you dialed has been deactivated." Refusing to give up, Liu Cixi sent me a message on WeChat, but my WeChat account also showed as deactivated. He tried everything to reach me, but it all ended in vain. With no other choice, Liu Cixi called my brother Chen Zi's number. After being rejected 3 times, the call finally connected. On the other end, Chen Zi was sitting in the living room watching TV, being disturbed again and again. He sounded extremely irritated. "Oh well, big CEO. What can I do for you?" Liu Cixi ignored his sarcasm and asked directly, feuding, "Was he Wu Yin? Was it really him?" Chen Zi let out a cold laugh, then said mockingly, "Liu Cixi, don't tell me you only just found out that feuding is actually Wu Yin." Liu Cixi frowned and said he never told me any of this. Chen Zi seemed to calm slightly. "These past few years, you've had all your attention on Zhang Yida. When have you ever truly cared about feuding?" Liu Cixi stared at the call screen that had gone dark. His mind was in complete chaos. 12 years ago, Zhang Yida had come to him on his own and confessed, claiming that he was the Wu Yin he had been searching for. When Zhang Yida described that exact detail from the racetrack that day, and because they had known each other since childhood, he naturally believed it. But from the moment I met Liu Cixi, even though he knew I was passionate about cars, he never paid attention to the fact that I raced professionally. Thinking back carefully, He had been disabled for 5 years, and on the day the doctor finally declared his legs healed, he slowly stood up, then wrapped his arms around me and said one thing: "Thank you for saving my life. If I hadn't been there to care for him all those years, he might never have made it to that day." Back then, I simply smiled at his feet and said, "This makes 2 times I've saved your life." He even wanted to argue with me, but Jong Yida's call came in and interrupted his train of thought. Realizing he had been deceived for 12 long years, he burst into tears before the mirror, then stormed into the guest room next door and shook the sleeping Jong Yida awake. Jong Yida blinked up at him, bleary-eyed and confused, but Liu Cixi slammed Wu Yin's photo in Jong Yida's face, then gripped his delicate neck tightly and shouted, "Jong Yida, how dare you lie to me?" 1 second Jong Yida had still looked calm and relaxed, but when he saw the furious Liu Cixi before him, he seemed to realize something. In a panic, he grabbed the scattered photos on the bed, and the moment he saw them, a deep, unmistakable guilt filled his eyes. He didn't even bother to hide it. A piece of garbage like feuding. How could he possibly be the legendary Wu Yin? Back then, Wu Yin was only 16, yet already one of the top racers in all of Lincoln, practically a god among men in the racing world. Liu Cixi leaned in close to Jong Yida, her dark eyes blazing with fury. "I've confirmed it. Feuding is Wu Yin, and Wu Yin is feuding. Jong Yida, you really fooled me so cruelly." That year on the racetrack, Wu Yin lost the race because his car was shot and caught fire due to an enemy's sabotage. Even though he was about to win first place, he gave up the $1 million prize and turned back, risking everything to save you. After pulling you out of the flames, he arrogantly pointed from the stage and said, "I saved your life. You'd better remember to repay me." Those words about repaying the favor stayed with you for 12 whole years. But who would have thought you remembered the wrong person all along? Liu Cixi's face turned completely cold. He shoved the pathetic Jong Yida aside and snapped icily, "Jong Yida, move back to the Jong family right now." Ignoring Jong Yida's pleading, he ordered the butler to throw him out. Then, wearing a stormy expression, he called his assistant. His voice was icy. "Investigate the so-called kidnapping of Jong Yida, and also look into that party from that day." Meanwhile, at the airport, the plane touched down. I took out a cap and pulled it over my head. My medical bandage still wrapped tightly around the top of my head. Father and mother had already been waiting at the exit. Standing beside them was a woman I didn't recognize. She wore a sleek gray suit and had a stunning, elegant face. It had been a long time since my parents had seen me, and their kind faces were filled with unconcealed joy. "Come, Ting, let us introduce you. This is Suwanru." I took a good look at my fiancée. The warm light fell on her shoulders, highlighting the sharp angles and clean lines of her features. Her delicate face and thin lips carried just the faintest trace of a smile, yet there was something strangely distant about her. "Hello, I'm feuding," I said softly. Suwanru's dark eyes gleamed as she gave me a once-over. Her sharp gaze landed directly on the cap on my head. Only after a long pause did she speak. "Suwanru, your fiancé." An hour later, a black sedan slowly pulled up in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Su's parents had been waiting there early. When they saw me, they couldn't hide the satisfaction on their faces. The son-in-law their daughter chose had a tall frame, clear, fresh skin, and looked far better in person than in photos. It was obvious I'd been raised well since childhood. The more they looked at me, the more pleased they were. Then, she generously took off the jade bracelet from her wrist. "Ting, this was given to me by Wanru's father. It originally belonged to Wanru's grandmother. Now I'm passing it on to you." I could tell the jade's quality with a single glance, and felt flattered, caught off guard. Just as I was about to decline, Suwanru's lips curved slightly, and she said softly, "This is a token of my mother's goodwill." Only then did I accept it with ease. Besides, her father spoke up, I've had the secretary transfer a portion of the Su family's shares under your name, Ting. His tone as he said this was as calm as if he were mentioning a simple transfer of 10,000 yuan. But I knew very well what those Su shares were worth. The Su family today was rising fast in the business world, a true leader in the industry. Those shares were far more valuable than any jade bracelet. Thank you, uncle and aunt. My eyes reddened slightly. I was genuinely touched. Receiving 2 grand gifts at our very first meeting showed how much the Su family valued me. Back then, Mother Liu had once given me a jade bracelet too, but I knew clearly that was something I earned by taking care of Liu Cixi during her disability for a full 5 years. Over the years, the Fu family had gradually declined, and Father Liu and Mother Liu always felt I was lacking somehow. They had even said privately that they hoped Liu Cixi would marry into the Gu family to secure her position in society. Let's go. Let's get the marriage certificate, Su Wanru reminded me. Alright, I followed Su Wanru into the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the license. A little over 10 minutes later, it was done. I looked down at the marriage certificate in my hand, momentarily lost in thought. Su Wanru stood beside me and said, I bought a villa in the city as our wedding home. I've just sent you the address and the entry code. Only your name is written on the property deed of the villa. Since you've just returned, stay with your parents for these 3 days. As for the wedding, we'll hold it in 2 weeks. We're still discussing the arrangements. Meanwhile, at the Liu Group, an assistant placed an invitation on Liu Cixi's desk. President Liu, we're still investigating Miss Zhang's case, but this is a wedding invitation from the Su family. Liu Cixi reached out and opened it for a glance. Groom Fu Ting, bride Su Wanru. She stared at the groom's name, and her heart began to panic. At that moment, I opened my phone, and sure enough, Su Wanru had sent over the villa's address and the door code. She was even more thoughtful than I had imagined. She had even considered letting me stay at my parents' place first. Looking at the graceful figure before me, for the first time, I felt that this impulsive marriage might actually be a good decision. Both families had lunch together, and the atmosphere was unexpectedly warm. We didn't part ways until the afternoon. By evening, father and mother had prepared a full table of dishes. After a long time apart, the 3 of us sat down to reunite as a family. Father was in high spirits and drank quite a lot. He started talking more than usual. We and the Su family really are fated. We didn't know them that well at first, but in recent years, they've helped us out both openly and behind the scenes. If the Su family hadn't stepped in, our Fu family might not have made it this far. I was a little surprised. The Su family had been helping us all along these years. 3 days passed quickly, and on the 4th afternoon, Su Wanru came to pick me up. I couldn't bear to say goodbye to my parents. They looked at Su Wanru, who stood not far away. She held my hand and whispered that she could tell that the child seemed to like me quite a bit. She urged me to try getting along with him. I lowered my gaze to Su Wanru standing beside the car. I couldn't help but feel he didn't really like me. The ride was quiet all the way. Neither of us said a word until the car stopped in front of the hospital. Tilting my head in confusion, I asked if he was sick. Su Wanru's gaze fell on the large hat I was wearing. She said I was injured, not ill, and told me we'd go home after she brought me here for a checkup. I was momentarily stunned. A gentle warmth rose in my heart, but curiosity followed close behind. I asked how she knew I had a head injury. I had hidden it pretty well these past 3 days. Even my parents hadn't noticed anything wrong with my head. Su Wanru tilted her head slightly. Her slender fingers tapped lightly on the steering wheel. Her deep eyes fell on my pale face. She guessed that it started the day he picked me up from the airport. She recalled how I had dressed up nicely From head to toe, my outfit was coordinated in soothing tones. It was obvious I was someone who cared about appearances, except for that oversized hat. It completely covered the top of my head, but didn't match the rest of my look at all. Later, when I got in the car, my head accidentally bumped against the car door. Logically speaking, a light knock shouldn't have hurt that much. But my reaction had been so intense that I hissed through my teeth, as if the pain was unbearable. Suwonru's suspicion grew, and she found it hard to believe that I might be hiding something serious from her. At the top floor of a private hospital, the doctor had been waiting for quite a while. He looked curiously at me, trailing behind Suwonru, and couldn't help but complain that she made him wait at the hospital since early morning and was only arriving now. He suddenly paused and asked if I was the one she always talked about. Before he could finish, Suwonru coldly cut him off, saying that I was her husband, Fu Ting, which made the doctor instantly shut up. He ran a full-body checkup on me, and under Suwonru's instruction, he changed the dressing on my head with the gentlest touch imaginable. An hour later, the results finally came back. After discussing it at length with the doctor, he called Suwonru out into the hallway. His expression was grave. He told her that her husband, Fu Ting, had not only suffered a head injury, but had also experienced temporary blindness. Though my right eye's vision was slowly recovering by inertia, he had observed something else troubling. The wound on my head didn't look like it was caused by a single impact, but rather by repeated and deliberate harm. He referenced the injury sustained at dawn, saying he had a friend inquire at the hospital over there, and pulled my recent medical records, where he discovered some irregularities. If I had been hospitalized due to an infection, there was no reason those particular medications should have been used early on. Based on his years of medical experience, he suspected I had secretly donated bone marrow without being informed. A surge of anger flared up from Suwonru's clenched lips. She picked up her phone and gave a firm order to investigate what exactly happened during that time at dawn and what I had gone through. The next morning, Suwonru received a call from her assistant. "President Su, we've compiled everything your husband went through at dawn. It's been organized into a document and sent to you." In the study, Suwonru read through the file. According to the bank records, the Su and Liu families had been enemies for generations. Old grudges between their elders ran deep, and as the youngest daughter, she had never taken part in those disputes. But now that I'd been hurt, things were different. Recently, the Liu family had their eyes on a shipment at the docks and tried to seize it by offering an exorbitant price. On the other end of the call, her assistant paused for a few seconds and asked carefully, "President Su, do you mean to go head-to-head with the Liu family now?" Zhang Yiter had been forced to move back to the Zhang family home. He sent message after message to Liu Cixi, begging pitifully for her forgiveness. But Liu Cixi never responded, not even once. Zhang Yiter refused to give up and went looking for Liu Cixi at the bar she often visited. I pleaded with him, wronged and desperate for forgiveness, but Zhao Longnu never responded to him, not even once. Yang Guo was unwilling to give up. He found the bar Zhao Longnu often visited. A cool figure suddenly threw herself into his arms. "Cixi, I've missed you," I said. Zhao Longnu lowered her head. He saw clearly that it was Yang Gu's face. With visible disgust, she yanked him off her body. "Get off me!" Zhao Longnu used great force. Yang Guo lost his balance and fell heavily onto the ground. People from the same social circle were all around us. They lowered their heads and covered their mouths to stifle laughter. Yang Guo had never been humiliated like this before. He climbed up and stomped off in frustration. Early the next morning, Longnu returned with the documents her assistant had investigated, along with the card. His broad face was clouded with gloom. He was so furious his lips trembled. Not only was Yang Guo ungrateful, this man was full of delusions. When I learned that he had received my bone marrow, instead of being grateful, he repeatedly hurt and set me up. Zhao Longnu couldn't imagine how I had endured all this. I wonder how I made it through. If it had been him, he probably would have gone insane already. Zhao Longnu's eyes brimmed with cold resolve. The aura of deadly calm she exuded was especially intimidating. It took him a long time to calm down. He slowly picked up the phone on the table, opened the chat with Yang Guo, stared at the screen with a grim face. "Come to the villa. Right now." Yang Guo replied almost instantly. His message was full of excitement. "You've forgiven me, haven't you? I'll tidy up a bit. I'm coming over now," he said as Zhao Longnu stared at her phone. He ordered the servants to fill the pool with water and dumped in the Prime Minister's stash of ice. Half an hour later, Yang Guo walked into the villa, beaming. It was obvious he had dressed to impress. Wearing a sharp suit, his hair styled with care, he was confident that this look would be irresistible to Zhao Longnu. He believed it would be a fatal charm. Just as Yang Guo was about to approach Zhao Longnu, Sima, holding a wine glass, slowly descended the terrace to bodyguards beside her, walked up to Yang Guo, and pinned his shoulders from both sides. "Mr. Zhang, Miss Liu asked us to escort you to the pool." Yang Guo's shoulders were being gripped tightly. He was shocked that Zhao Longnu's people were treating him this way. He shouted coldly in anger. "Let me go, what do you think you're doing? I'm your future husband." The two bodyguards remained expressionless. They dragged him firmly to the pool and without mercy forced his head into the water. Yang Guo's carefully styled hair was ruined instantly. Icy water rushed up his nose. The cold made him shiver all over. He gulped down 3 mouthfuls of pool water, but strangely his mind cleared. He realized Zhao Longnu was still furious with him. "CC, didn't you say you'd calm down? That's why you called me over. I told you last time that I wanted to explain as soon as I got back to the country. I'm not heartless without reason, but these days Fu Ting kept bullying me. I was so mad I forgot to tell you. You saw it yourself. It was Fu Ting who got me kidnapped last time. And at that party, my lips were torn open." Yang Guo sobbed, his voice trembling. He sounded like he was suffering to the extreme. Zhao Longnu silently placed her wine glass on the table. She walked alone to Yang Guo, raising her hand slightly. The bodyguards instantly pulled Yang Guo upright. He looked up, disheveled. Just when he thought Zhao Longnu had softened, she sneered coldly and stomped her foot down on his head, forcing it back into the water with a vicious press. At this point, even with the heavy atmosphere, you still want to frame Fu Ting. "Yang Guo, I know everything you've done." Her voice was icy to the core, and every word pounded against my heart. I trembled all over. A wave of fear wrapped itself tightly around me. So much so that I forgot to struggle. No, this is impossible. How could Zhao Longnu possibly know what he had done? No, even if she knew, so what? I still carried his child inside me. At most, Zhao Longnu would punish me a little. She wouldn't really hurt me. The moment I thought of that, I suddenly regained some confidence. Just as Zhao Longnu was turning to leave, Yang Guo threw his arms around her leg, sobbing so hard his entire body was shaking. "Everything I only did it because I love you too much. It's all because I love you. I wanted a beautiful future with you. That's why I did those things. I'm not a bad person by nature." Zhao Longnu raised her foot again and used her toe to lift Yang Gu's chin. Disgust clouded the depths of her dark eyes. "Of all the things you could have done, you went and took Fu Tingjuan's bone marrow, and still dared to hurt and provoke Fu Ting afterward. Yang Guo, men like you who are rotten to the core. Even looking at you one more second makes me sick." After a pause, Zhao Longnu tapped his face with the toe of her heel. Her beautiful face remained emotionless. "Didn't you say you liked making people pick things up? You never picked up the ring you threw last time." Go pick it up now. Yang Guo looked at her in despair. Water dripped from his soaked hair down his pale face to the floor. He looked absolutely pitiful in that moment. But I'm carrying your child. This water is so cold. It could hurt the baby. Besides, I've stayed by your side all these years. Don't you feel even a shred of affection for me? Zhao Longnu's face tightened. Her voice was filled with icy contempt. If you hadn't pretended to be Wu Yin back then, do you think I'd have ever spared you a second glance? Yang Guo, you destroyed my life. You ruined the way father saw me. Did you really think I'd forgive you so easily? What are you standing around for? Do it, she ordered the bodyguards. They immediately dragged Yang Guo and hurled him into the pool. He knew how to swim, but the water was far too cold. Before long, he was shivering uncontrollably, his entire body trembling. He gritted his teeth and struggled to the edge. Just as his hand reached the rim of the pool, Zhao Longnu lifted her foot and stomped hard on his fingers. Pain drained all color from Yang Gu's face. He screamed and begged for mercy, but in the end, the pain was too much to bear. He slipped back into the icy pool. Moments later, a streak of bright red spread through the clear water. Zhao Longnu narrowed her eyes dangerously, and only then did some of the rage inside her begin to fade. A ting, did you see that? I've avenged you. Now come back to me. Half an hour later, Yang Guo was taken to the hospital by the bodyguards. He tried to resist, but Zhao Longnu had already arranged everything with the doctors. No matter what, the child had to be removed today. The anesthesia entered my body, and I quickly lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was lying on a cold hospital bed, and my belly felt completely hollow. Tears had reddened Yang Gu's eyes. He howled and raged in the ward like a madman, smashing everything within reach. Pillows, cups, shoes. The nurses couldn't stop him, so they had no choice but to call Zhao Longnu. Miss Liu, if you don't come now, he's going to tear the whole room apart. Yang Guo had thought Zhao Longnu wouldn't show up, but to his surprise, she appeared at the ward very quickly. She took one look at the mess and at Yang Gu's pale face, and said coldly, I still have two more accounts to settle with you. I was going to wait until you recovered, to deal with you slowly, but it seems your body's quite resilient. Her tone was calm and steady when she said this, but I saw a flash of terror in Yang Gu's eyes as he cowered on the hospital bed. I looked in fear at the woman standing before me. She was nothing like the deranged figure from 10 minutes ago. I still hadn't recovered. Zhao Longnu strolled slowly to the bedside. She lifted my chin and said in a low voice, didn't you rip your own mouth on purpose, spouting slander nonstop, and shove the jade bracelet into your mouth? Oh right, you even smashed a vase on his head. When she finished speaking, she clapped her hands. Two bodyguards carried in a massive box. When they opened it, it was filled with 10 vases, and more than half a box of jade bathroom bracelets. I guessed what was about to happen to me. My face turned ghostly pale. I trembled from head to toe in fear. In the next second, I scrambled out of the hospital bed and knelt before Zhao Longnu, knocking my head to the floor over and over again. I was wrong. I really was wrong. I'll apologize to Fu Ting in public. I'll kneel and apologize to him. Isn't that enough? Cece, please, considering I just lost our child. Spare me, I beg you. Spare you. Zhao Longnu let out a chilling laugh. Her eyes were terrifyingly cold. Do you think a verbal apology is enough? You need to endure everything Fu Ting endured. Only then can you even hope for his forgiveness. After saying that, she glanced at the two bodyguards nearby. One of them quickly tied up my hands. The other grabbed a pile of jade bracelets and started stuffing them into my mouth. I struggled with everything I had, but the bodyguard just kept shoving more in. Until 2 minutes later, the corners of my mouth had completely torn open. Drip, drip. Blood fell from my chin to the floor. My eyes burned red with pain. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. Once upon a time, even the slightest discomfort in me would make Zhao Longnu feel unbearable heartache. But now she sat on the sofa, watching me suffer with a face like stone. Alright, time to settle the next debt. It's the vase's turn. Worried the ceiling wasn't high enough, Zhao Longnu ordered the bodyguards to take me back to the villa. That box of vases was carried to the second floor, down in the main hall. I was all alone. A bodyguard picked up a vase and hurled it down with force. The vase smashed onto the top of my head. Clang! A blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the villa. My scalp split open instantly. The strong scent of blood filled the entire house. The bodyguard remained expressionless and continued throwing vase after vase. My voice turned hoarse from screaming, but Zhao Longnu never once spared me a glance. In the end, all 10 vases crashed down onto my skull, and I completely lost consciousness. Zhao Longnu finally looked up, calm and deliberate. Her eyes glinted with ruthless malice. Send him back to the Zhang family. Just as I was dragged away, Liu Qingqing arrived moments later. At the villa, he looked at Zhao Longnu's grim face on the sofa, and his own expression soured. I've got bad news. You need to prepare yourself. Fu Ting won't be coming back. I heard he's about to get married to someone from the Su family. The man Su Wanruo is marrying. Is Fu Ting your ex-boyfriend? Zhao Longnu's face darkened. A storm of cold rage surged within her. Liu Qingqing didn't want to see her in pain. He gently pulled out a photo and handed it to her. This was taken by a paparazzo. It showed Su Wanruo sweetly holding a napkin, gently wiping sauce from the corner of Fu Ting's lips. He's over there, isn't he? I'll book a flight right now and go find him. Liu Qingqing suddenly grabbed her arm and reminded her, lately all your attention has been on looking for Fu Ting. Have you been ignoring business matters? The Su family just paid a high price to snatch that shipment at the docks. That was likely a warning. Cici, have you really thought this through? Are you sure you want to start a war with the Su family for Fu Ting's sake? Zhao Longnu lowered her head slightly, and her once radiant smile was now twisted in pain. What a talented and refined man he is. Without him, I think I'd go mad. She sighed softly again, and didn't try to talk me out of it anymore. At the same time, Fu Ting began taking over the Fu family business. In the first few days, he left early and returned late. There was far too much on his plate, but thankfully, he had a quick mind. With Su Wanruo's guidance, he quickly found his footing. He tirelessly organized the company's business records from the past few years, and soon discovered that several of the failing projects dragging the Fu family down were all tied to subsidiaries of the Liu family branch. Fu Ting's expression darkened. Just then, Su Wanruo walked into the office with a lunchbox in hand. Seeing father's pale face, she frowned and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Why do you look so unwell?" Father pointed to the contracts on the table. They're from Zhao Longnu's uncles and cousins, and a few other relatives of hers. Why would they want to ruin our Fu family? Su Wanruo picked up the contracts. She flipped through each one carefully. Her expression gradually softened. Looks like Liu Jialing's side favors internal competition. Maybe they thought you'd end up with Zhao Longnu, so they pulled this stunt to collapse the Fu family. She paused for a moment and added, logically speaking, in recent years, the Fu family has struggled. Zhao Longnu must have known that much, but she never seemed to care about the Fu family at all. Zhang Yida let out a self-deprecating laugh. All her attention these past years was focused entirely on Zhang Yida. Even when Zhang Yida went abroad, she sent him money on time. She had no energy left to manage the Fu family's affairs. But that just proves my parents' decisions weren't wrong. Su Wanruo spent the whole afternoon with Fu Ting, analyzing the Fu family's investment data over the years. After everything was sorted out, Fu Ting finally let out a breath of relief. We're taking wedding photos tomorrow afternoon. Suwon Ruo suggested, let's do it the day after instead. I've scheduled a meeting tomorrow to discuss a partnership. These past few days with Fu Ting had been pleasant. Her energy was infectious. And the way she looked at him, there was no hiding the affection. That sense of comfort far surpassed all the times he'd poured himself out for Zhao Longnu. By 1,000 cups and more. Meanwhile, Zhao Longnu arrived in the city where Fu Ting lived. The moment she landed, she ordered someone to investigate Fu Ting's current situation. When she flipped through the information, a cold smile spread across her face. The report said, Fu Ting and Suwon Ruo were currently living together. They left the house together in the morning and came back together at night, practically inseparable. Zhao Longnu read the file over and over again, then suddenly threw it hard against the table. Fortunately, there was no mention of a marriage certificate, so she still had a chance. And thinking about it, it had only been a few days. Zhao Longnu sought out the president of the Yushai Group and struck a deal with him. The president of Yushai Group would take her along to Fu's headquarters tomorrow for their partnership meeting. And while he was at it, bring her along. From then on, as she developed in the domestic market, he'd have her back. The next morning, Zhao Longnu changed into a carefully selected outfit. A tailored suit for the occasion. She dressed meticulously from head to toe, checked herself in the mirror multiple times, and only after confirming every detail did she leave the house. At Fu's corporate headquarters, Fu Ting had just finished the morning meeting. His secretary came over and reminded him. The president of Yushai Group scheduled a 10 a.m. meeting. He's waiting in the small conference room. I picked up a black coffee from the lounge, grabbed the documents from the table, and made my way toward the small conference room. Inside the meeting room, Zhao Longnu sat anxiously. She kept looking at the photos on her phone's lock screen, her eyes full of longing. Soon, the sound of leather shoes echoed outside the door. The heavy door slowly opened. And in that moment, Zhao Longnu felt like the entire world had fallen silent. She looked at me with desperate hope. I wore a plain black suit. My hair was neat and sharp. And there was a warm, resolute smile on my face. Before I could even react, the woman in front of me suddenly threw her arms around me. A gentle, elegant scent of perfume brushed past my nose. Zhao Longnu clung to me tightly, her voice trembling. Ting, I finally found you. I grew impatient and was just about to push her away when Suwon Ruo, who had come earlier to bring me fruit, stepped in and pulled Zhao Longnu off me. The next second, Suwon Ruo moved to stand protectively in front of me. She looked at Zhao Longnu, and in her intense, dark eyes flashed a sharp warning. Her whole presence radiated a dangerous coldness. It felt lethal. Zhao Longnu, after all the harm you've done to Fu Ting, how dare you show your face here? Zhao Longnu stood frozen for a few seconds. Just as she was about to explain she had mistaken me at first, I spoke, my face devoid of warmth. Hold on, Wan Ruo. Let me clear the room first. This is Fu Group headquarters, and there were still employees on this floor. I didn't want my private matters to become office gossip. With that, I turned to the silent president of Yushai Group and said coolly, President Yu, from today on, Fu Group and Yushai Group will no longer have any business dealings. Take care, I won't be seeing you out. Suwonru's expression turned cold. The Su family will also withdraw from its partnership with Yushai Group. Take care, we won't be seeing you out. The president's face turned ghostly pale, and his secretary promptly made a gesture toward the exit. Soon, only the three of us were left in the office. Me, Suwon Ruo, and Zhao Longnu. Zhao Longnu looked at me sitting beside Suwon Ruo, so close we were nearly touching. Her gaze fell on my indifferent, handsome face, and her heart clenched as if gripped by an unseen hand. The pain was overwhelming. I used to look at her with such gentle, loving eyes. They had once been filled with nothing but affection for her. Zhao Longnu was silent for a long time. Before she finally spoke, Ting, I've already taught Zhang Yide a lesson. Will you come back to me? Suwon Ruo let out a cold scoff. The Liu family truly is shameless to the core. To still have the audacity to beg for a reconciliation. I stared at her coldly and said flatly, "It's over between us." You saw the messages and the photos too. Zhao Longnu's eyes turned red, and she asked bitterly, "Do you not love me at all anymore?" "No," I answered, expressionless, my voice calm and steady. "Ever since I found out you secretly gave my bone marrow to Zhang Yiter, without telling me, I stopped wanting to love you." The following 7 days were the final stretch of clarity for me. The moment I wrote my decision in my journal, I knew I never wanted to see this person again. Thinking back, Zhao Longnu was the first woman I ever loved with everything I had. Influenced by my parents' deep love for each other, I had always believed in my naive heart that if I gave her my whole heart, she would return it sincerely. To say I never loved Zhao Longnu would be a lie, because through those 5 difficult years of disability, I stood by her and bore it all with her. But just as I was preparing to marry her, she chose Zhang Yita and kept hurting me again and again. Everything that happened in that time would be unbearable for anyone. Now, I even felt a little disgusted, even though I hadn't said anything particularly harsh. Zhao Longnu's face grew even more ashen. "Zhao Longnu, no matter how you beg me now, I will never look back again. What we had is over. From now on, let's be strangers." After I finished speaking, I didn't even look at Zhao Longnu's expression. I took Suwon Ruo's hand and left the meeting room. Zhao Longnu stared at my cold, heartless back and tried to stand to chase after me, but the secretary stepped in and blocked the door. Zhao Longnu could only stand frozen and watch helplessly as the two of us walked away. The whole day, Suwon Ruo stayed in the office with me until I got off work that afternoon. Zhao Longnu drove after us, tailing the car closely, but I never once looked back at her the entire time. By evening, the butler approached, holding a tablet as he walked over to Suwon Ruo and me. He hesitated, then said, "Sir, madam, there's a woman kneeling at the gate of our villa. She's holding a stack of documents. No matter how we try, she refuses to leave." I glanced at the surveillance feed on the tablet and saw Zhao Longnu kneeling at the entrance, her left hand clutching a pile of car purchase contracts, her right hand holding up a small sign. 18 words were written on it. "Fu Ting, I bought 3 sports cars you love. I hope you can forgive me." What was even more ridiculous was the sight behind her, 2 people holding up a banner, and written across the banner were the words, "Give me one more chance, please. Just throw me a resurrection armor for exes." I let out a breath with no hint of emotion, feeling nothing inside. "Just ignore her," I said. The next morning, the weather suddenly turned dark, and a torrential downpour began. Zhao Longnu was soaked from head to toe, looking utterly disheveled, all her usual aloofness completely gone. She quickly ducked into Suwon Ruo's car. At the villa gate, Zhao Longnu watched helplessly as the Porsche drove off, her eyes filled with a quiet sorrow. Back then, even a hint of sadness from me would make her frantic with worrying. But now, even after I stood in the rain all morning, she didn't spare me a single glance. In just half a month, my attitude toward her had changed completely. At Fu Group, I went about my day as usual. After finishing the morning meeting, my secretary walked in holding a set of car contracts. A trace of annoyance crossed my fair and handsome face. I thought it was Zhao Longnu causing trouble again. But the secretary smiled and placed the documents in front of me. "Vice President, these are from Miss Su. She had them delivered." Then my friend Chen Zi sent me a message. "Ah Ting, Suwon Ruo really cares about you. She even called me to ask what kind of sports cars you like." I told her to go for the ridiculously expensive kind, and she went and ordered them without blinking. She's truly all in on you. He even posted a photo of the contract. on his social media, captioning it with just one word, garage. That afternoon, Suwon Ruo took me to the studio for our wedding photos. Zhao Longnu followed us into the bridal boutique, her eyes red as she looked at me. Ah Ting, why won't you accept the cars I bought? But you're willing to accept hers. I looked at the slightly aggrieved woman before me and replied with a touch of sarcasm, because I already said I never wanted to see you again. So naturally, I don't want anything from you either. Zhao Longnu, didn't you always dream of marrying and having children with Zhang Yide? I've made room for him now. Shouldn't you be rushing to marry him? Only later did I realize that even while I was caring for her through her disability, she had still been sending money to Zhang Yide abroad. That kind of devotion, even I had to admit, was impressive. The light faded from Zhao Longnu's dark eyes, as if the world had gone dim around her. She stepped forward, trying to embrace me. Ah Ting, it's all Zhang Yide's fault. He lied to me. It was only because of that I mistook him for you and treated him well all these years. But now I finally know the truth. That whether in our youth or now, you were always the one I truly loved. The other day, I even underwent an egg retrieval surgery, giving up my chance to have children. That was my punishment for him. Can we start over again? She asked, her voice trembling. Her words laced with blood and tears. She sobbed, just think how happy we used to be. I refused to listen, shaking my head. Memories of our past began to surface. Back then, Liu's mother always looked down on me. She never approved of me being with Zhao Longnu. All she ever wanted was for Zhao Longnu to marry into a wealthy family. But I only wanted to be close to the one I loved. And in those days, I never felt at peace. He was always worried that he himself wasn't good enough to keep Zhao Longnu by his side. He feared her heart would stray, that she and Zhang Yide might rekindle their old flame. He constantly worried that even Liu's mother wouldn't approve. He and father gradually backed away, and he left Zhao Longnu's world without a word. Last year, when he saw her again, she was as cold as ever. Whether or not Zhang Yide had lied, the truth was that she was never truly loyal. Like a broken object with a fading name, I had cared for her all those years. Even if I wasn't credited for my efforts, I still bore the hardships. After all, it was after she became sterile that Zhang Yide abandoned her, and she couldn't even understand my pain. In the end, she secretly took my bone marrow. That act alone was utterly despicable. And to be honest, she was heartless and deeply selfish. She never once considered what it meant to me as her partner. Behind the scenes, she manipulated everything, and afterward acted as if she were the one wounded. But all of it was because she wanted to have both men in her life at the same time. She said she loved me, yet turned around and held another man's hand. How could I possibly still have the courage to love her? Zhao Longnu opened her mouth several times, trying to say something, but no words came out. Her shoulders slumped. She looked utterly defeated, like someone discarded and forgotten. I ignored her completely and turned to enter the studio with Suwon Ruo to take our wedding photos. That night, Chenzi kept calling to feel out my mood. He played a video from the news, pointing to the person on the screen. Look at this news clip. Did you see it? The Zhang family just made a fool of themselves again. The video was all over the internet, topping the local news headlines. Zhang Fu was caught selling land just to survive. Chen Zi shook his head. A father and son to pathetic lives. Zhang Yide's father is such a fool. Only an idiot would raise someone like that. Honestly, it's better not to do business with the Zhang family. Even the major companies working with them have begun to pull their investments. Now all that's left of the Zhang family is an empty shell. Though Zhang Fu still had some ability, Li Man was the ruthless one. To keep the Zhang family afloat, she even resorted to selling vegetables in desperation. They announced Li Jiai for 1 million, auctioned like a prized pet. I heard Zhang Yide tried to run several times after that, but each time he was dragged back by his father. Now he's barely hanging on. screaming so loudly that even the neighbors hear, ranting as if possessed, saying it's fate that the heavens are cruel. But I couldn't understand why karma hadn't caught up with him sooner. Zhang Yida, the damage he caused me not long ago still lingered, now cornered with nowhere to go. If not for sheer luck, I might have ended up paralyzed in a hospital because of the marrow he stole, lying there for the rest of my life. Yet Zhao Longnu still refused to give up. Just to win back father, she started a live stream account, broadcasting every day from 9 to 11 in the morning. The stream's theme was all about her ex and his hardships, saying how hard it was to serve a CEO. The stream barely managed to attract 100,000 viewers. Curious netizens, unaware of the backstory, kept asking how the two of us broke up, trying to piece the tale together like a romantic tragedy. Zhao Longnu never once dared to speak the real reason father left. Those who knew the truth couldn't stand it. Her version of the story was far from reality. She painted herself as the victim, subtle and calculating. But most comments praised father for his strength. To be honest, no one could have tolerated what Zhao Longnu did. Not even a saint. What a mess. And this is what I stumbled across first thing in the morning. My head couldn't stop spinning. And over here, she kept crying for hours as if the sky had fallen. Her fans waited early just to catch her stream. But when she started it up, she bluntly declared, "To those suggesting we reconcile, I'll reward every decent idea with over $100. The moment she said that, the viewers actually began to agree, thinking of how Zhao Longnu always flaunted her wealth without shame. Some netizens started posting about it on Weibo as soon as they passed through Japan, and the luxurious gossip spread once more. They said they could see how deeply I had been hurt by her. Yet she insisted on dragging me through everything all over again, as if only by reliving it herself could she truly understand what I felt. But punishing Zhang Yida alone wasn't enough. She was part of the problem too. In my opinion, she owed a proper, formal apology. Only then would it be a true expression of regret. Zhao Longnu carefully read through all the suggestions from the viewers. She chose 5 of them, but it all felt unreal to me. She vanished again for the next month and a half. And not even her teachers remembered how old she was. At first, we thought Zhao Longnu was just seeking a reunion, maybe acting on a sudden impulse. But half a month later, she went live again, and the sight of her on camera startled her viewers. Her head was wrapped in bandages, her face pale and bloodless, as if she had endured something truly agonizing. It turned out that during that month she disappeared. She had finally tasted the bitterness of all the suffering she had never known. After going through all that, she appeared full of regret, staring into the camera, her eyes red and trembling. And for the first time, I understood why Fang had been so determined to leave me. I had truly wronged him. Her actions had once filled the internet with lies about her, and I wrote her several letters. While the tone of comments under her posts began to shift, though there were still a few who couldn't forgive her. Some began to admire Zhao Longnu, saying she was always a queen-level girl, but lacked the courage to be harsh with herself. They claimed she was a real man at heart, that rich women often couldn't help but be unfaithful, and any woman willing to turn back was worth forgiving, telling me that even I should forgive her. But I didn't agree. I had just received some news about Zhang Yida. All these years, he had done countless vile and dirty things, but he never stopped loving Liu Cixi. Don't think he was any better than me. Back then, I had all the wealth, and still stayed beside a disabled Liu Cixi, which meant Liu Cixi had been calling out to him for a long time. Ha ha ha! It was nothing but a farce for the village fools. He gave it a name, a warning to speak cautiously and act with care. Zhao Longnu drank wine every night, and spent her days stirring up drama online. In her live streams, she reminisced about her sweet moments with Fang, and Fang saw it all. He hadn't expected Zhao Longnu to use his pain to manipulate public opinion and force him back. So the day he created a new social media account, he posted an official photo of his marriage certificate with Soo Won-ruo, with the caption, "Someone to love, something to do, a future to look forward to." Those simple words, along with the marriage certificate, spread like wildfire. Zhao Longnu had been live streaming at the time. She froze the moment she saw the comments flooding in. People couldn't believe Soo Won-ruo had made it official. Wasn't Soo Won-ruo known for being private and mysterious? An older woman of elegance, and now they were getting married out in the countryside. He said he was truly happy to marry the one he had dreamed of as a boy. It was romantic and powerful. When Zhao Longnu saw those comments, she looked betrayed. Her mind went completely blank. After a few seconds, her hands trembled. She picked up her phone and tapped into the trending page. The moment she saw their marriage certificate, it was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over her. She went cold all over, too stunned to scream, yet she still wouldn't give up. She faced the live stream camera and refused to back down. She kept insisting she was just in love, that nothing should get in the way, not even time. She stared into the camera for hours, saying it had only been a moment of impulse, that I had misunderstood her and walked away. By evening, those words reached Soo Won-ruo, and by then, even patience had run out for Zhao Longnu's online chaos. Her desperate line, "I'll wait until he divorces," was still echoing. But that very night, Soo Won-ruo made her decision. She made it official to the public, announcing that anyone who tried to interfere with her marriage to me would face consequences. I was allowed to negotiate and sign a contract with the Soo family. Even Liu Cixi began to quiet down. But when it came to certain business dealings that opposed the Soo family, she pressured them relentlessly. Their actions immediately became a hot topic among those in the circle. Many families started gossiping behind closed doors. They said it was all over a man, but now the two families were at each other's throats, giving those minor influencers a golden opportunity. But the bride-to-be simply smiled. Speaking gently, she said, this was the first time she had done something like this. She didn't want her husband to be looked down on. The situation boiled over. The feud between the two great families caused a huge stir, and soon enough, old Master Liu found out. So furious, he stormed out of the sanatorium and flew straight to Liu Cixi's office in Liu Nation. At that moment, Liu Cixi was on the phone, arguing with Soo Won-ruo over a business deal. It was a major project, yet the two of them were locked in a silent contest of will. Old Master Liu entered the room, grabbing his cane, and struck her with it. You fool, all this chaos over a man. Between the Soo family and the Liu family, the last thread of harmony, you've torn it to shreds. His chest heaving with rage, he nearly collapsed right then. Ever since last year, his health had been declining. That's why he'd moved into the sanatorium and slowly let go of authority, allowing the younger generation to take over, especially Liu Cixi. She had always been his most beloved granddaughter. He had entrusted her with his legacy, giving her the greatest power in the family. Even during her years of disability, what she had accomplished were feats most people her age could never match in a lifetime. But just yesterday, when he heard what Liu Cixi had done recently, he fainted from fury. She lowered her head softly. Dark sorrow veiled her expression like a shadow. I'm sorry, but I can't give up. I won't stop. Old Master Liu's cloudy eyes grew red. Perhaps. He raised his cane again and struck Cixi once more. He had sat at the top for too long. Always a man of few words, rarely showing emotion, but now his words poured out like floodwaters. Our Liu family and the Soo family have shared generations of friendship. There should never have been this kind of century-old hatred. Even if we never speak again in this life, we should have maintained some grace. Never have we sunk to this level of farce. Now that you've gone and humiliated our family like this, and let the world witness this disgrace, where do you expect me to hide my shame? These last few days, only for hours of sleep, all for the sake of securing the deal. I've barely slept 2 hours a night, and still went to Chiankun to confront his red hat cronies. Even though I was in pain, I didn't stop. I walked up to my grandfather, kneeled before him and begged, "Grandfather, please help me bring Fang out. He's cruel and heartless. He won't come unless you intervene." It was the first time I had ever smiled at him, and behind his closed eyes, a complicated emotion stirred. If getting Fang out meant you would lose your place as heir of the Liu family, would you still want it? Liu Cixi didn't hesitate even for a second. She nodded. "I would," she said, and old Master Liu drew a deep breath. Then under Liu Cixi's hopeful gaze, he nodded as well. Cixi bowed 3 times in succession, but as soon as she stood up, maybe it was from the exhaustion or the beatings, she collapsed on the spot. You have to understand, before 64, her health was iron strong. A few strikes wouldn't have knocked her out. Eventually, old Master Liu regained consciousness. He waved his hand, signaling the butler to rush Cixi to the hospital. After she passed out, she felt like she was dreaming. In the dream, she came to me. Old Pudding was with her, guiding her to make a wish at the Midnight Temple. Cixi was still recovering, taking time off from school. Her father was so worried he almost collapsed. I said I would take her to see him right away. I asked her if we could hold the wedding tomorrow. She said she didn't want to marry me because he would betray her eventually. So now she wanted to make a wish that we would never see each other again for all eternity. Liu Cixi stood tall before me, like a ruler delivering judgment. He grabbed his burning red eyes and pleaded with her, saying he wouldn't be sentenced, that he had already suffered enough retribution. He couldn't bear living in this prison-like existence. The heroine took several steps back, then let out a cold laugh. Before vanishing into a wisp of blue smoke, he could only agree with a heart full of grief. It was the first time he truly felt the kind of pain that tore him apart. All of it through a mere chat message. Old Master Liu gave him a glance, his voice hoarse. "I called Fang. He said he would agree to meet you, but only if Suwan Ruo came along. Besides, he's been too busy these past few days. The only time he has is at noon 3 days from now. There's no other way." Old Master Liu narrowed his cloudy eyes and exuded the pressure of a man with unshakable will. "Are you certain you want to see him? If your answer is yes, then I will now publicly declare that you are stripped of your right to inherit. You and Cixi are emotionally unstable, unable to let go when needed. Someone like you is not fit to be the heir." This was the second time old Master Liu asked, and though I knew very well the consequences of defying him, I still stood firm in front of my grandfather. "I want to see him. Without him, I'd go completely out of control. Then go on and cause your chaos." Old Master Liu announced to the public that Liu Cixi was no longer the heir of the Liu family. When Fang received this news, he was currently with Suwan Ruo. Chen Zi called and tried to cover his shock with laughter, saying old Master Liu had just made the announcement that Liu Cixi was no longer the heir. It seemed even the mentor had lost faith in her. The wind cooled the flush on my face. I had walked a long road with them. Even the hair oil old Master Liu applied that morning showed he had completely humbled himself. He had apologized sincerely for Liu Cixi's action, taking responsibility on her behalf, and genuinely hoped Fang would agree to meet at least once, so Cixi could finally give up for good. He had seen everything with painful clarity, the bonds between the Liu and Su families and this girl. If he didn't step forward, things between the two families might continue to spiral. So he agreed to old Master Liu's request and promised to meet once a year, on the condition that Suwan Ruo would be present. Youth doesn't last. Back when I was young, I built everything with my own hands, raising the Liu family from its ruins into a queen's empire. Of course, I had the wisdom to use the right people. On the other end of the call, Chenzi added one more juicy rumor about a scandal involving Zhang Yide and a casket seller. Apparently, just recently, he had taken $1 million and sold Zhang Yide to a wealthy woman in her 50s. Her plastic surgery face was a crisis in itself. Covered in thick, toxic makeup, Zhang Yide had been forced to register the marriage with her. Rumor had it that on the day of registration, he had a full breakdown. Even though he'd worked as a police officer for over a decade, he still couldn't hold it together. Netizens claimed they saw him bawling in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau, crying so hard, you'd think he'd been dumped by someone radiant and perfect. Before Huang Fang could respond, Suan Ruo placed a braised chicken wing onto his plate. The corners of her lips tilted slightly. Pity always comes with its share of resentment. She looked pitiful when she cried, but there would be plenty more times for her to cry in the future. Their meeting was scheduled for 3 days later. Liu Cixi didn't hesitate. To prove her resolve to the influencer, Liu Cixi contacted her lawyer and expressed her intent to transfer all her properties. The contract only needed Fang's signature. Once signed, everything would be registered under Fang's name. She then began researching everything about him, preparing thoroughly for their reunion. By the time I finished all of that, it was already the 3rd day. I had gotten up early for times, carefully grooming and dressing myself, following old Master Liu to meetings with wary anticipation. And then it happened. Holding on to the Bugatti purchase agreement, the server opened the door for us. Two tall, graceful figures stepped inside. Tooting and Suwin stayed behind, holding hands. Both were dressed in understated shades of red and light gray. Their entire presence radiated happiness. As soon as they sat down, the old man gently handed him something. Looking at my father's cold, indifferent face, my chest tightened as if something were clutching it. The pain made it hard to breathe. When did it start? That he no longer smiled at me. I pulled out the property transfer contract with a heavy heart, then took out another piece. One I had written through the night, detailing her likes and dislikes. My voice was hoarse by the 8th day. If you read this, you know I truly care. It's not just sentiment. I sincerely want to get back together with you. Can you believe me one last time? There was a slightly messy bundle of wild lily, and that handwritten letter from Cixi. He picked it up and quickly tore it apart, coldly watching me cry. This letter can be shredded now, but Yuta can never return to how things used to be. Cici's assistant opened her mouth with a trembling voice. Even bad people make mistakes, can't you give me one more chance? A plan made in uncertainty. You don't act like a father, you have no idea how much they talk. It makes me recall what happened a month ago. Selfishness isn't real love for me. But now it's also true that I no longer love you. Though he seemed gentle on the outside, his nature was always inclined to compromise. But once he made a decision, he rarely ever changed it. Even if he had never met Swanrong after parting with Cixi, he would still have chosen to live alone. Living alone would still have been his choice. Cici's face grew paler and paler. I kept confessing I really hoped that for the sake of those 5 years I took care of you, you would stop disturbing my life. Let's truly never see each other again. Once I finished speaking, I stopped listening. I didn't even look at what kind of expression Cixi had. My gaze fell upon the ever-silent old Master Liu. Sir, I've said everything I needed to say. From this point on, I will no longer act against your granddaughter. But I also ask you to remember what you promised me. Since that day when old Master Liu called me, just to have me meet with Cixi one last time, he had actually made 2 requests. One was about Dai Suer's past. The other was hoping that old Master Liu would keep her from pestering me again. There was a subtle gleam in old Master Liu's aged eyes. He had lived most of his life with few regrets, and had a sharp eye for judging people. If father had listened to Liu Cixi, and she had truly taken the role of heir, she would definitely have risen even higher. The future would have held promise, but Cece didn't carry that ambition. Old Master Liu pulled a large red envelope from his bag and handed it to my father. "You little rascal! Congratulations, this is a small token of my regard." I looked at the red envelope before me, and a wave of emotion rose in my eyes. Among those who supported Cece's relationship with me, aside from Liu Qingqing, Old Master Liu was one of the few who genuinely approved of me from the bottom of his heart. I accepted the gift calmly and expressed my gratitude with humble confidence, then excused myself politely, saying I still had things to attend to, and left with relief. Old Master Liu gave a nod, but in the end, he couldn't help himself. He sighed softly, just as father had only walked a few steps away. Liu Cece, with red envelope in hand, walked back in. She stared at my retreating back and shouted loudly, "Xiaolon." I kept walking. Could she hold me one last time? Just once, her touch carrying both warmth and sorrow. In that quiet corridor where I had been driven away, a figure suddenly burst into the security area. When Zhang Yide saw how twisted father's expression became while looking at Fu Tinky, he charged forward with heavy steps, holding a bottle of concentrated sulfuric acid, and hurled it straight at father's face without hesitation. Suwanru cried out fiercely that everything was fine, and tried to rush forward, but he had just turned to speak with the server to settle the bill. A scream tore through the air like a terrible lesson. Then I saw Cece throw herself into action to shield a rich man. What nonsense! She used her body to shield father without thinking. The thick sulfuric acid instantly splashed across Cece's back and head, and began to burn through her skin in seconds. The pain was clearly unbearable, even for someone like her. Cece couldn't help but scream out. I froze for a few seconds, then walked straight up to Zhang Yide and slapped him hard across the face, making it swell. "Zhang Yide, are you insane? You actually threw sulfuric acid at the wrong person. If Liu Cece hadn't blocked it for me, I would have been the one disfigured for life, wouldn't I?" Zhang Yide clutched his reddened cheek. Still unwilling to let go, he stared at Cece's blooded form. His voice trembled slightly as he asked, "Why would you defend him?" "I just didn't want to lose the spotlight to your performance. A beauty should always shine bright." He sneered again, lashing out with more hurtful words. "You just wait, I won't be the only one coming for you. Some people will never let this go, and neither will I. The moment you gave up on me was the moment you chose your end." Before Liu Cece was carried into the ambulance, she looked at father with terror-reddened eyes and whispered weakly, "After this, can you forgive me this time?" Zhang Yide saw Liu Cece covered in blood and was just about to speak when he collapsed from shock and fainted on the spot. 3 days later, I finally received word that Liu Cece's condition had worsened. At the time, she had thrown herself in front of father without hesitation, taking the full brunt of the acid meant for him. The sulfuric acid soaked through her skin. By the time she was rushed to the hospital, a severe infection had already set in. She had been kept in the ICU ever since, under constant emergency care, just like a fragile child. Old Master Liu did not spare Zhang Yide. He hired the best legal team and pressed charges against Zhang Yide for intentional harm. Even father returned briefly to Mensity to do what little he could. Zhang Yide claimed I had forced him to act in desperation, that I had humiliated and provoked him to the brink. But during the first trial, he couldn't defend himself and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. After something so terrible happened, I couldn't bring myself to focus on wedding preparations. Even Suwanru could understand why. So young and still clinging to old hopes. Several more years passed. Then I received a call from Old Master Liu. On the other end of the line, his aged voice carried a trace of sorrow. "You brat! Come and see Cece." His words turned my mind blank. I stood there, unable to think, and looked toward the man beside me for guidance. Suwanru saw the helplessness in my eyes. She pulled me gently into her arms and comforted me, saying I should go see her, no matter what happened before. You endured it then. But if you see her this time, you'll never regret it. On the road there, father stared silently out the window at the swirling wind. He no longer loved Liu Cixi. At one point, he had even hated her a little, but now, for some reason, he made the trip anyway. We arrived at a private hospital room. I looked through the glass at Cixi. Her entire body looked like a withered tree, her skin pale and drained of all color. Even her breathing had become faint and shallow. When she saw me, Cixi suddenly smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in days. She quietly called for father and gently patted his hand. Her tone was fragile and low. Don't cry, I'm sorry. It was my fault before. I'm truly, sincerely apologizing to you now. Don't blame yourself because I'm leaving. If it's possible, can you hold me one more time? I bent down slowly and gently embraced her. Her voice was hoarse as she whispered, "Don't die, Grandfather Liu still needs you." Cixi gave a faint smile and looked out the window at the years flowing past like water. As she looked toward father, "I wish you happiness and joy, my dear Ating. I truly hope you remain happy always." Father walked out of the hospital room in tears. Suwanru stood silently beside him. Seeing him trembling as he cried, she told me not to blame myself. Things had already reached this point. The Liu family soon issued an official obituary, announcing the passing of Liu Cixi. 3 days later, we attended Liu Cixi's funeral. I was still in a daze. I went with Su Wanru to pay our respects. The two of us stood silently in black amidst the crowd, watching the brief ceremony at Liu Cixi's coffin. I knew she deserved a better man in her next life. She was no longer Liu Cixi. I silently wished her happiness in her next life. I knelt and bowed deeply in respect. Suwanru held our wedding ceremony. The venue was decorated with racing-themed cultural elements. She had spent 2 months preparing for this day. This wedding! She had tailored it to everything I loved. She didn't invite business partners, only close family and friends. Our loved ones filled the hall. When we toasted guests one by one, we turned to our parents in gratitude. I looked at father in his neatly pressed suit. He gently patted my hand. Don't rush to have children. Just days ago, he even reminded us, if you don't want them yet, we shouldn't pressure you. I turned to glance at the elegant woman beside me. Dressed in a simple white gown, she looked delicate and stunning. When she caught me looking, she offered me a gentle, warm smile. At that moment, my heart softened completely. 24 hours a day, we would still think of our aging parents. As we stood by them, our parents held our hands tightly, already crying uncontrollably. When you were 3, your mother already imagined this day would come. But now that it has, she still finds it hard to let go. Even my always composed and solemn father had tears brimming in his eyes. I looked at them, caught between tears and laughter. Suwanru had thoughtfully chosen a new home, very close to my parents' place, just a 10-minute drive away. Feeling a little helpless, I promised them I'd come home for a few days each month. As we sat together in the car afterward, news of our wedding quickly hit the trending charts. Netizens flooded social media with blessings. I remembered how people said President Su had always been the goddess of her youth. Her entrance at the wedding venue was the final closure father needed to end those 8 years of painful love. For anyone else, letting go wouldn't have been so easy. Is his work going well? Apparently it is, and I heard the wedding scene was arranged exactly how I liked it. Still, people envied our love, as if it had blossomed overnight. Someone jokes Su had spent a fortune on another platform, even sending out red envelopes as a giveaway. A week later, Suwanru accompanied me to visit Zhang Yido in prison. She spoke briefly with the prison warden. Soon, I was brought in to meet Zhang Yido. He wore a loose prison uniform. His body looked gaunt. His eyes were sunken, with deep dark circles. The man who once made others envious now had patchy hair and a hollow expression. Zhang Yide realized the one visiting him was me. His expression darkened completely. He scrutinized me from head to toe, desperately trying to find some flaw in me. But the man standing before him was in his best form, nurtured by Suwonru's love. I radiated nothing but contentment. Zhang Yide couldn't find any trace of weakness in me. After a moment of awkward silence, he dug his nails into his palm. His face twisted with resentment. Why should he spend 30 years behind bars, while I walked free and lived well? Sensing his burning jealousy, I picked up a recent business newspaper and held it against the glass between us. Do you see this? After just 1 year under my management, the company has turned losses into profits. I paused briefly, then pulled out my phone. I opened the photo from 1 week ago of our wedding. This was the day Suwonru and I were married. He said he should be thanking me instead. Without me, she wouldn't have kept sharing tirelessly with him. Douyin showed me all the things Cece had done for me. Maybe it was her that gave me the courage to finally leave him, and not just some vague sense of responsibility. Who would have thought? The goddess of our youth was now married. Netizens found out a bit too late. Marriage always seemed to come quietly. Songju's debut kept making headlines. With that slightly smug attitude of hers, she tilted her head, glancing at her husband from the side. Her eyes were filled with golden tenderness. He never seemed able to quit his obsessions. Father still had a fire in him. The dead cannot be brought back. Liu Mei said, but her husband is really quite adorable. Zhang Yide's eyes were practically burning with rage. In his eyes, I had never measured up to him. He was the one who left Liu Cece behind when he went abroad. That's why she ended things with him. Even if he had once held Liu Cece briefly, why would someone so ordinary like me be the one she willingly stood in front of danger for? And even Suwonru agreed to marry me. Zhang Yide and Li Qijie were once the envy of all. No matter how much you show off, you can't deny. I'm alive today because I received your bone marrow. That's the only reason I've survived. In the silence of the night, I imagine he can't help thinking about all this, probably too furious to sleep. Suwonru gave me a soft, gentle smile. Just as I was deep in thought, she took my hand in hers, gently squeezing it, and smiled, unlike the smug face of Zhang Yide behind the glass, who seemed to lack even a shred of conscience. That's when I felt completely at ease. I heard you're not sleeping well in prison. Don't forget it was me who arranged for you to be cellmates with that fat, sleazy inmate. So take good care of each other. Try to behave. Before I could finish, Zhang Yide's expression darkened. I only remember him screaming and pounding the glass. You better leave now. I turned and looked at Miss Su. We exchanged a knowing smile. Before we came to the prison, we had already done our research. Zhang Yide wasn't doing well inside, but he still pretended to be top dog. What he didn't know was that Zhang Yide ended up here for betraying Liu Cece's love and for hurting the person who once gave him bone marrow. Since entering prison, he'd been ignored entirely. As for that fat inmate, his favorite hobby was mimicking racing scenes while Zhang Yide acted as the car. He even called himself Wu Ying. Show me how you race again. Every time Zhang Yide had to do it, he wept bitterly and begged for mercy. Suwonru's lips curled into a slight smile, her face radiant with satisfaction. I told him, Zhang Yide, you'd better live through this properly. I'll come back every few months to check on you. I held Suwonru's hand tightly, ignoring Zhang Yide's furious shouting behind us. I turned to the warden and asked to see an inmate named Chen Yan. The racing performances of Wu Ying had just reached a new level of absurdity. The fat inmate Chen Yan scolded him loudly, saying Wu Ying could do a dragon tail drift and even overtake on curves. Aren't you the so-called Wu Ying? Then show me again. Run for another 3 years. Suwonru was pregnant and nearing her due date. I waited outside the delivery room holding a bouquet of sunflowers. 5 hours later, our baby came into the world before the story ended. Some children are just born wise beyond their years. I didn't even look at the baby yet. Even our parents didn't know how to react from the nerves. They held each other tightly. My wife was the first I'd ever seen a man so worried about his wife. He gently asked about her condition. I assured him both mother and child were safe. Just earlier, from behind the curtain, I wasn't sure if it was Su Wanru who was being wheeled out. I rushed over at once. She looked pale as she lay on the hospital bed, fragile and exhausted. For the first time, my eyes turned red in front of her. Wanru, I'll get a vasectomy tomorrow. We won't have any more children. Even our parents' eyes welled with tears, covering their faces as they sobbed. No more children, it's too much suffering.